The grand ballroom of the Wellington Hotel was a symphony of forced opulence, a stage set for the city's elite to perform their rituals of wealth and connection. I stood near a potted fern that likely cost more than my monthly rent, the chiffon of my emerald green dress whispering against my legs. In my hand a flute of champagne bubbled, untouched and growing warm. I was an ornament in the scene, the poised and appropriate fiancé of Alex Sterling, who was currently holding court across the room. I watched him. It was a habit born of 3 years, studying the set of his shoulders, the practiced ease of his smile, the way his hand would land on a business associate's arm to underpoint. He was brilliant at this. We were brilliant at this. The golden couple they called us in the society pages. He with his old money pedigree and venture capital genius. Me with my rising star art consultancy and the kind of quiet elegance that complemented his loud success. A perfect merger. My gaze drifted from him, scanning the crowd without seeing. It landed on a familiar, comforting figure leaning against the bar. Leo. My best friend since freshman year, when he'd found me crying over a spilled tube of cadmium red and proceeded to create a masterpiece with the splatter on my canvas. He'd shown up tonight in a suit that was just a shade too relaxed, his tie already slightly askew, his dark curls resisting any attempt at taming. He caught my eye over the rim of his whiskey glass and gave me a small, private smile, a lifeline in a sea of sharks. Leo was my green. Not in the jealous sense but in the sense of verdant, living, real things. He was the park after rain, the moss on old stones, the unexpected fern in a concrete jungle. While Alex's world was polished marble and cold steel, Leo's was warm wood and thriving potted plants. He was my anchor, my truth. A ripple in the crowd drew my attention back to Alex. A woman had joined his circle. Tina. She was new to his firm, a dazzling, sharp-edged kind of beautiful, all platinum hair and crimson lips. I'd met her once. Her handshake had been like gripping ice. Alex's body language shifted imperceptibly. His stance opened toward her, his laugh became more frequent, his eyes lingered. A cold knot began to form in my stomach but I breathed through it. Paranoia was unbecoming. I was Clara Evans, soon to be Clara Sterling. I was secure. We had a plan, a life mapped out in 5-year increments. The band shifted to a softer, more intimate number. Alex excused himself from his group and with Sienna's hand tucked possessively in his, began to weave through the crowd. Toward me. The knot tightened. He wore his public smile, the one that didn't quite reach his slate-gray eyes. "Clara, darling," he said, his voice a smooth baritone meant for my ears and those around us. "You remember Sienna?" "Of course," I said, my own smile a perfect mirror of his, polished, empty. "Lovely to see you again." Sienna's smile was a slash of white. "Clara, that dress is so unique." "Thank you," I said, knowing she meant it as anything but a compliment. Alex's eyes flickered over my shoulder, dismissing me even as he addressed me. "We're going to steal a dance. You don't mind, do you? You've been looking a bit peaky all night." The condescension was a tiny, precise needle. Peaky. A word for a Victorian heroine about to succumb to the vapors. It was meant to belittle, to frame my quiet observation as weakness. "Not at all," I heard myself say, the words automatic. "Enjoy." I watched as he led her to the center of the dance floor. His hand settled on the small of her back, lower than was strictly necessary. They moved together, a seamless unit. The whispers around me started, soft at first, then gaining volume like an incoming tide. I saw the glances, pitying and avid, darting from the dance floor to my isolated form by the fern. I didn't feel the heat of humiliation. I felt a profound, spreading cold. It started in my chest, a glacial lake forming where my heart used to beat warmly for him, and seeped outwards, icing over my veins, steadying my hands, clearing my vision. The bubbly facade of the party sharpened into hyperreal focus. I saw every fake smile, every calculating glance. I was not part of this world. I was an observer in a diorama of decadence. And then as the song swelled to its crescendo, Alex stopped dancing. He looked down at Sienna, said something that made her laugh. Then, with a deliberate, theatrical slowness, he cupped her face and kissed her. It wasn't a chaste peck. It was a deep, claiming, passionate kiss, right in the middle of the dance floor in front of 200 people. In front of me. Time didn't slow. It crystallized. The gasps of the crowd were like the crackle of static. the smug triumph on Sienna's face as her eyes fluttered open and met mine over Alex's shoulder. The way Alex finally pulled back, his gaze sweeping the room not with shame but with a defiant, almost challenging pride. He found me. He looked right at me, his expression hardening, waiting. He was waiting for my reaction. For the break. For the tears, the staggered flight from the room, the public dissolution of Clara Evans. That was his script. That was the finale of his little power play. To demonstrate who held the power, to punish me for some unknown transgression, perhaps simply for existing as something he believed he owned and could now discard with flair. The glacial cold within me reached my face. I felt my lips move. I smiled. It was not a smile of pain or confusion or heartbreak. It was a cold, sharp, surgical smile. A smile of utter, crystalline comprehension. It was the ice cracking on the surface of a deep, dark lake, revealing the profound stillness beneath. I held his gaze, letting that smile cut through the distance between us. I saw the first flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The script was deviating. Without haste, I placed my warm champagne flute on the tray of a passing waiter. I turned my back on the scene, on my fiancé kissing another woman. My movements were smooth, deliberate. The whispers crescendoed into a roar behind me, but it was just noise. I had a single point of focus. Leo. He had straightened up from the bar, his drink forgotten. All the lazy humor was gone from his face, replaced by a fierce, protective intensity. He'd seen it all. His hands were clenched at his sides, his body coiled as if ready to launch himself across the room at Alex. For me. I walked toward him, the crowd parting silently before me. My emerald dress felt like armor now. When I stopped before him, I saw the storm in his hazel eyes. Anger, worry, a desperate question. Leo, I said, my voice remarkably steady, a calm center in the whirlwind. Claire, just say the word. I'll drive you home. Or I'll break his nose. Your pick. His voice was low, rough with emotion. I reached out and took his hand. His fingers were warm, solid, real. The antithesis of the cold consuming me. Look at me, I instructed softly. He did, his gaze searching mine. He saw the cold smile, the absence of tears. He saw the resolve. He's waiting for me to shatter, I said, my words for him alone. He thinks this is checkmate. Leo's jaw tightened. It's not. No, I agreed, the cold smile still playing on my lips. It's my move. I stepped closer into his space. I released his hand and instead brought my palms up to cradle his face. His skin was warm, a faint stubble grazing my thumbs. His eyes widened in surprise, then flooded with a dawning, awestruck understanding. There was no hesitation in him, only a deep, unwavering trust. Don't think, I whispered. Just be my green. And then I rose onto my toes, closed the last inch between us and kissed him. It wasn't for show. Not entirely. In that moment, it was the most honest thing I could have done. Leo's lips were soft and he tasted of whiskey and mint in Leo. His initial shock lasted only a second before he responded, his arms coming around me, not with the possessive grab of Alex, but with a solid, sheltering certainty. He kissed me back, a kiss that was an answer, a sanctuary, a revolution. The noise of the ballroom faded into a distant roar. For a few heartbeats, there was only the warmth of his mouth, the solid beat of his heart against mine, the scent of his familiar cologne. It was a kiss that unraveled 3 years of carefully constructed lies and stitched together something new and terrifyingly potent in its place. When we finally broke apart, breathing each other's air, the world rushed back in. I turned my head, still within the circle of Leo's arms, to look across the ballroom. Alex was frozen. Utterly, completely frozen. The defiant pride was gone, replaced by a stunned, ashen incomprehension. He stood like a statue, Sienna forgotten at his side, her triumphant smirk dissolved into open-mouthed shock. He was staring at us, at Leo's arms around me, at my face which surely held a color and a life it hadn't possessed moments before. The chessboard had been upended. His queen had just moved herself and she was no longer his. I met his stunned gaze one last time. I let the cold smile return, a final, silent bullet. Then I turned back to Leo, took his hand and without a single backward glance, I walked with him out of the ballroom, leaving the silence and the ruin of my old life behind. The cold inside me was still there, but at its core where Leo's hand held mine, a single fierce point of warmth had begun to bloom. The transition from the stifling, perfumed air of the ballroom to the cool, concrete reality of the hotel's underground parking garage was like stepping through a portal. The silence here was profound, broken only by the echo of our footsteps and the distant hum of machinery. Leo's hand was still wrapped firmly around mine, his grip not possessive but grounding, as if he was a tether keeping me from floating away into the icy void of shock. He didn't speak. He led me to his car, an old, lovingly maintained Volvo that smelled of lemon polish oil paints and him. He opened the passenger door for me, his other hand coming up to shield my head in a gesture so instinctively gentle it made something crack deep inside the permafrost around my heart. I slid in, the emerald chiffon pooling around me. He got in the driver's side, started the engine, and the familiar rumbling purr filled the space. Till he said nothing. He just drove, his eyes on the road, his profile sharp in the intermittent flash of streetlights. He was giving me space, the greatest gift he could offer in that moment. He knew I didn't need platitudes or questions. I needed the quiet to process the tectonic shift that had just occurred. I stared out the window at the blurring city. The glittering towers seemed like stage props now, hollow and meaningless. My mind wasn't racing. It was methodically, coldly cataloging. Alex's kiss. Not a mistake, not a drunken lapse. A calculated, public execution of our relationship. Why? The question was clinical. Had he grown bored? Found Sienna more suited to the image he wanted? Or was it simpler? A cruel demonstration of power, a reminder that in our world I was ultimately disposable? The 3 years replayed not as a romance, but as a business arrangement I had failed to properly assess. The expensive gifts were retainers. The social appearances were branding. The planned future was a merger. And I, Clara Evans, had just been voted off the board in the most humiliating way possible. Then my counter. Leo's face under my hands. The shock in his eyes melting into that profound, unquestioning trust. The feel of his lips, so familiar yet utterly new in this context. The rightness of it even as it was a weapon. I finally spoke, my voice sounding foreign in the quiet car. I used you. Leo didn't look at me. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be. His voice was low, firm. It was the best damn kiss of my life and it served a higher purpose. Poetic justice with benefits. A startled, rusty sound escaped me. A laugh. It felt strange in my throat. He was frozen, Leo. Just frozen. I saw. Leo's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Wish I'd taken a picture. The great Alex Sterling rendered a statue. Priceless. He glanced at me, his hazel eyes searching my face in the dim light. Where to, Clara? Your place? A remote island in the Pacific. His apartment. It was a nest of chaotic creativity, canvases leaning against walls, books stacked on the floor, a jungle of houseplants thriving in the sunny windows. It was the antithesis of my pristine, minimalist condo that Alex had helped me choose. My condo felt like a showroom now, a stage set for a life that was over. Yours, I said. Please. He nodded, and a few blocks later he turned toward his neighborhood, a part of the city with older buildings and tree-lined streets. We lapsed back into silence, but it was a different kind of quiet now, charged with the unspoken enormity of what had happened between us. Not just in front of Alex, but between us. He parallel parked with an effortless grace that was so Leo. He came around to open my door and I took his hand again, the green silk of my dress whispering against the worn asphalt. We walked up the 3 flights to his apartment, the familiar, slightly musty smell of the hallway a strange comfort. He unlocked the door and pushed it open, flicking on a lamp. The warm, messy glow welcomed us. He didn't turn on the overhead light. Make yourself at home. I'll make tea. Or something stronger. Tea, I said, stepping inside. I kicked off my heels, the cold floorboards a shock to my soles. I walked into the living room, absently running my fingers over the leaves of a monstera plant that was taking over one corner. Its vibrant, waxy green was a balm. I heard the clink of mugs in the kitchen, the hiss of the kettle. I stood in the center of the room, hugging myself. The adrenaline was beginning to recede, leaving a hollow, shaky feeling in its wake. The cold was still there, but it was thinning, and beneath it the first raw, jagged edges of pain were starting to poke through. Leo returned with 2 steaming mugs. He handed me one. Chamomile. He remembered. I wrapped my hands around the warmth, letting it seep into my icy fingers. He didn't sit next to me on the couch, giving me space. He leaned against his drafting table, watching me. Talk or don't talk, he said softly. Cry or don't cry. Break his favorite vase. Oh wait, that's mine, don't break that. But you get the idea. I'm here. However you need me. I took a sip of the tea, the floral heat soothing my tight throat. I don't think I can cry yet, I said, my voice small. It's all too big. And cold. The cold will pass, he said, his voice certain. And when it does, I'll be here for that too. I looked at him, then really looked at him. My best friend. The man who had seen me through failed art projects, family drama, every high and low of my adult life. The man whose face had been the last thing I saw before I kissed my fiancé goodbye. The man I had just kissed with a passion that was only partially performative. What did I do, Leo? The question was a whisper. He put his mug down and crossed the room, kneeling in front of me so he was looking up into my face. He took my free hand. You took your power back, Clara. In the most spectacular, badass way imaginable. You didn't run. You didn't give him the satisfaction of your tears. You changed the narrative. You declared your independence with a really excellent kiss. A tear finally escaped then, hot and traitorous, tracking through the careful makeup I'd applied for Alex. I dragged you into my mess. I've been in your mess since the day I found you covered in red paint, he said, his thumb stroking my knuckles. And I'd choose to be in it every single time. Besides, it's my mess now too. And I'm pretty okay with that. He was. I could see it in his eyes. There was no regret, no hesitation. There was a fierce, blazing pride in me, and beneath it, a vulnerability he wasn't trying to hide. My phone, which had been dormant in my small clutch, began to vibrate. Insistently. Then again. And again. I didn't need to look to know it was Alex. The world was starting to react. The texts, the calls, the social media notifications, they would be a tsunami. I looked at the buzzing clutch like it was a venomous insect. You don't have to answer that, Leo said, his voice hardening. Not tonight. Not ever again if you don't want to. He'll come looking, I said, the thought sending a fresh chill through me. He'll want to explain. To reassert control. Let him try, Leo said, and there was a steel in his tone I rarely heard. He stood up. You're staying here tonight. On the couch or the bed, I'll take the couch. But you're not facing that alone. He walked to the window, peering down at the quiet street below. And if he shows up here, he deals with me. The simple, fierce protectiveness of it was the final chisel that broke the ice. A sob welled up in my chest, harsh and painful. I set the mug down with a clatter and buried my face in my hands. The tears came then, not the delicate tears of a society bride, but great, heaving, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. Tears for the 3 years wasted, for the public humiliation, for the love I'd thought was real but was now revealed as a beautifully wrapped empty box. Tears for the terrifying freedom that now stretched before me. Leo didn't try to shush me or hold me too tightly. He sat beside me on the couch, a solid, warm presence, and let me break. He handed me tissues when my hands fumbled for them, and when the storm subsided into shuddering hiccups, he pulled a soft, paint-stained Afghan over my shoulders. I kissed you, I whispered, my voice ravaged. Yeah, he said, a soft smile in his voice. You did. It wasn't just for show. I know. I don't know what that means. It doesn't have to mean anything tonight, he said, his arm going around my shoulders, pulling me gently against his side. Tonight it just means you're safe. Tonight it just means you're here. I leaned into him, exhaustion crashing over me like a wave. The cold was gone, replaced by a deep aching fatigue, but also by the undeniable steadfast warmth of the man beside me. The world outside was chaos, a scandal brewing, a life dismantled. But here in Leo's messy, green apartment with the scent of chamomile and turpentine in the air, there was a fragile, newfound peace. And for the first time in 3 years I felt, amidst the wreckage, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I woke to the smell of coffee and the soft, diffuse light of a rainy morning filtering through Leo's crowded windows. For a disorienting second I didn't know where I was. The Afghan was tucked around me, a pillow from Leo's bed under my head. I was on his couch. Memory returned not as a shock, but as a heavy, undeniable weight settling onto my chest. The ballroom. The kiss. The frozen stare. Leo's lips. I sat up, the silk of my dress crumpled and stiff. My phone silent now, lay on the coffee table where Leo must have placed it after I'd fallen asleep. The screen when I gingerly picked it up was a disaster zone. 47 missed calls. Over 100 texts. Instagram and Facebook notifications in the thousands. My hand trembled. I didn't open a single one. Good morning. Leo's voice was quiet. He stood in the doorway to his small kitchen holding 2 mugs. He was wearing sweatpants and a faded t-shirt from a long-ago art show, his hair a glorious, unruly mess. He looked like a sanctuary. How do you sleep? Like the dead, I said, my voice raspy. Thank you. For everything. He brought the coffee over, handing me a mug. Don't thank me. Drink this. It's strong. I took a sip, the bitter heat grounding me. The phone. I know. I muted mine. The gossip blogs are having a field day. Society scandal. Sterling dumped via best friend's smooch. That kind of thing. He said it lightly, but his eyes were watchful, assessing my fragility. A bizarre, detached part of me noted the headline was catchy. Hi parents. I called your mom last night. After you crashed. Told her you were safe with me and that Alex was a monumental asshole. She was worried, but she gets it. Told you to call when you're ready. Tears pricked my eyes again, this time from gratitude. He'd thought of everything, shielded me from the first waves. Leo. He shook his head, silencing me. It's what you do. He sat in the armchair opposite, cradling his mug. So, game plan. You need clothes. I can run to your place or we can order something online for pickup. You probably shouldn't go back there alone yet. He was right. Alex knew where I lived. My condo, another piece of the curated life he'd built for us, felt like enemy territory. I have a go bag, I said, the words surprising me. In my car. From a weekend trip that got cancelled last month. It's just jeans and a sweater and some basics, but... Leo's eyebrows shot up. A go bag? Clara Evans, you secret survivalist. Where's your car? At the Wellington Valet. Right. He grimaced. Pap might be camped there. New plan. We order you some comfy clothes for now. Later we'll do a stealth mission for the car. Or I can go. The simplicity of his planning, the way he said we, steadied me more than the coffee. I wasn't alone in this fallout shelter. Hey, I said. Okay. We spent the morning in a state of suspended animation. Leo ordered me sweatpants and a hoodie from a nearby store for delivery. I took a long, scalding shower in his tiny bathroom, washing away the last traces of the previous night's perfume and hairspray. I emerged wrapped in one of his towels and one of his old flannel shirts, feeling more human. The clothes arrived. Dressed in anonymous gray cotton, my hair in a damp braid, I felt armored. The emerald gown lay over a chair like a shed skin. We ate toast. We didn't talk about the kiss. We talked about a new series he was painting, about a problematic client at my gallery, about everything except the elephant in the room. It was a necessary ceasefire. In the early afternoon, the siege began. First, it was the buzzing of the intercom from the street-level door. Leo walked over to the panel, pressed the button. Yeah. Delivery for Clara Evans. A man's voice, unfamiliar. Leave it downstairs, Leo said, his voice flat. Needs a signature. Not happening. Leave it or take it back. Pause. Then, it's from Mr. Sterling. Leo's eyes met mine across the room. I shook my head violently. Take it back, Leo said and released the button. He peered out the window. Black sedan. His driver, Reginald. He's leaving with a big white box. Probably roses. Too cliché, Alex. My stomach churned. Alex wasn't pleading, he was performing. Sending expensive flowers to the woman he'd jilted. A public gesture for the narrative he was trying to rebuild. 20 minutes later, the intercom buzzed again. Leo ignored it. It buzzed 5 more times in succession, an angry insect. Then my phone lit up. A number I knew by heart. Alex. I stared at it until it went to voicemail. It rang again immediately. And again. He's trying to wear you down, Leo said, his jaw tight. Classic tactic. I know. My voice was small. The cold detachment from the night before was gone, replaced by a skittering anxiety. This was the man who had planned a life with me. He knew my soft spots, my pressures. The text started appearing as notifications on my locked screen. Alex, Claire, we need to talk. You're being irrational. Alex, That little stunt with Leo was cute, but we have real things to discuss. Alex, you're embarrassing yourself. And me. Alex, answer the phone. Alex, he's using you to get back at me and you're too upset to see it. Alex, don't make me come over there. The last one was a spike of pure old-fashioned fear. I showed the screen to Leo. His face darkened. He won't get past the front door. I'll make sure of it. But Alex was resourceful. And used to getting what he wanted. An hour later, there was a knock on Leo's apartment door itself. Not the intercom. A direct, firm knock. We both froze. Leo put a finger to his lips and moved silently to the door, looking through the peephole. He mouthed, "It's him." My blood ran cold. He'd followed another tenant in or charmed the super. Of course he had. Clara. Alex's voice came through the door, strained but trying for calm authority. Clara, I know you're in there. Open the door. We need to talk. This is childish. Leo's hand tightened on the doorknob. I shook my head, panicked. I didn't want a confrontation. Not here, not in Leo's safe space. Go away, Alex, Leo called, his voice a low growl. She doesn't want to talk to you. A moment of silence. Then, this is between me and my fiancé, Leo. You need to step aside. You've caused enough trouble. My fiancé. The words were a brand. I stood up, the anxiety hardening into anger. She's not your anything, Leo shot back. Get the hell out of my hallway before I call the cops for trespassing. Clara. Alex's voice rose, losing its polished edge. Open this door. You can't hide behind him forever. You're making a huge mistake. I walked to the door, standing just behind Leo. I could feel Alex's presence through the wood, a dark, demanding energy. There's no mistake, Alex, I said, my voice clearer than I expected. It was made last night on the dance floor. By you. Now leave. A heavy thud, as if he'd leaned his forehead against the door. His voice dropped, became pleading, but it sounded manipulative, oily. Claire, please. It was a moment of madness. Fianna means nothing. He came on to me and I was drunk and... God, I'm so sorry. You have to believe me. What you did, it killed me. Please. Let me in. Let me explain. Let me make it right. The performance was masterful. The regret, the blame shifting, the appeal to our history. A week ago it might have worked. I might have opened the door wanting so badly to believe the fairy tale wasn't over. Now I heard only the lies. The calculation. He wasn't sorry for the kiss. He was sorry I'd retaliated in a way he couldn't control. No, I said the single word final. The silence from the other side was thick with fury. We heard him take a deep, shuddering breath. This isn't over, Clara. You belong with me. You know you do. He's nothing. A distraction. Oh wait. I'll be at your condo. Come home when you're done with your tantrum. His footsteps receded, sharp and angry, down the hall. I slumped against the wall, the fight draining out of me. Leo turned from the door, his face a mask of controlled rage. He's unhinged. He's not used to losing, I whispered. And he considers me a loss he can reclaim. He's wrong. Leo came over, his hands coming up to grip my shoulders. You're not a possession. You're a person. And you're free. I looked up into his face, the face that had been my constant. In the quiet aftermath of the siege, the memory of our kiss hung between us, no longer a weapon but a question. A terrifying, beautiful question. The fear of Alex was a cold shackle. But the look in Leo's eyes, the warmth of his hands on my shoulders, that was a key. The first day of my freedom was a war of attrition, but I was still standing. And I wasn't standing alone. The rain turned the windows of Leo's apartment into liquid canvases, blurring the world outside into a watercolor smear of gray and green. Alex's departure had left a vacuum, filled only by the rhythmic drumming on the glass and the low hum of the refrigerator. The immediate siege was over, but the emotional occupation was just beginning. I was adrift. The high-stakes drama of the public humiliation and the counterstrike had given me a purpose. Survive, retaliate, endure. Now, in the soggy, quiet afternoon, I had nothing to do but feel. And I desperately didn't want to. Leo, perceptive as always, didn't try to force me to talk. He built a fire in the small brick fireplace he never used, the crackling warmth, the defiance of the gloom outside. He put on a record, something instrumental and ambient without words that could accidentally wound. He brought out a sketchpad and a box of charcoals, placing them on the coffee table between us. You don't have to, he said simply, picking up a stick of charcoal himself and beginning to make broad, sweeping marks on a large sheet of paper clipped to a board. He wasn't drawing anything representational. He was just moving, letting the black dust express a tension his body wouldn't. I stared at the blank page before me. My hands, usually so steady when appraising a canvas or hanging a show, were trembling. I picked up a piece of charcoal. It felt alien. My art had been my life before Alex, but in the last 3 years, it had become a hobby, a talking point. My fiancé has such an eye, rather than a passion. Tentatively, I made a mark. A single shaky line. Then another crossing it. I thought of Alex's face, frozen in the ballroom. I pressed harder, the charcoal snapping, leaving a jagged black scar on the paper. I thought of Sienna's smirk. My hand moved faster, slashing dark, angry lines, smudging them with the heel of my hand until the paper was a storm of black and gray. It was ugly. It was cathartic. I didn't realize I was crying again until a tear splashed onto the paper, creating a bloom of wet gray in the blackness. I dropped the charcoal, my fingers stained and covered my face. Leo didn't stop sketching. His movements were calm, rhythmic. He was giving me privacy in my breakdown even as he bore witness to it. After a few minutes, my sobs subsided into hiccups. I wiped my face, leaving charcoal streaks, no doubt. I feel so stupid, I whispered, the confession torn from me. 3 years. How did I not see it? Leo put his charcoal down. He looked at me, his hazel eyes soft. You saw what he wanted you to see. What you wanted to see. Love makes the best of us blind, Clara. It's not a character flaw. It's just human. It wasn't love, I said, the realization of fresh ache. It was a transaction. I provided the appropriate arm candy, the art world connections, the well-mannered grace. He provided the stability, the status, the script. I looked down at my ruined drawing. I lost myself in his script. Then write a new one, Leo said. His voice wasn't flippant. It was fierce. Starting right now. What does Clara Evans want? Not the society version. The real one. The one who used to mix pigments on the back of her hand and dream in color. I had no answer. The real Clara felt like a ghost, a faint imprint beneath layers of polished behavior. I don't know anymore. That's okay, he said. That's the fun part. You get to find out. My phone, still on the table, buzzed again. Not a call this time. A calendar notification, stark and unavoidable. Dinner with the Sterlings, 7 p.m., Le Jardin. A full-body shudder went through me. I'd forgotten. Tonight was the long-planned, intimate dinner with Alex's parents to finalize wedding venue details. His mother, Evelyn, a woman who could freeze champagne with a look, had personally secured the chef's table at the most exclusive restaurant in the city. Leo saw my face. What is it? I showed him the screen. A grim smile touched his lips. Right. Well, I guess you're not going. The absurdity of it, the sheer, brutal disconnect between the life scheduled in my phone and the reality of my charcoal-stained hands in Leo's apartment hit me. A hysterical laugh bubbled up, harsh and dry. No. I guess I'm not. But the notification was a trigger. It pulled the thread and the whole tapestry of my entangled life began to unravel before my eyes. My job. My gallery catered to the same elite crowd. My biggest clients were friends of the Sterlings. My condo. The lease was in my name, but Alex had helped with the deposit, a fact he'd subtly held over me. Our shared friends. They were his friends, really. The wedding planner. The dress hanging in my closet, a cloud of silk and expectation. The deposits, the contracts, the endless, meticulous plans. Oh God, I breathed, the panic rising again, sharp and acrid. It's everywhere. My whole life is tied to him. Leo was up in an instant, crossing to a drawer and pulling out a fresh yellow legal pad and a pen. He came back and sat beside me, our knees touching. Okay, he said, his voice shifting into practical problem-solving mode. First things first. Breathe. Then we make lists. One thing at a time. What's the most immediate fire to put out? His calm was infectious. I took a shaky breath. The dinner. I have to cancel. But if I just no-show, Evelyn will. Let her, Leo said simply. But you're right. You cancel. On your terms. He handed me the phone. Do it now. Short, polite and final. No explanations. My fingers trembled as I found Evelyn Sterling's number. I typed, deleted, typed again. Clara. Evelyn, I regret to inform you I will not be attending dinner tonight. Following last night's events, my engagement to Alex is terminated. Please direct any further communication to my lawyer. Sending that text to Evelyn Sterling felt like cutting a taut wire that had been pulled across my chest for years. The immediate snap was painful, but the breath that followed was deep and clean. I half expected a volley of icy, imperious texts in return, but there was only silence. It was a silence more terrifying than any words. The silence of a fortress gate slamming shut, of my name being ceremoniously scratched from the ledger. It was also profoundly liberating. Leo and I spent the rest of the day in a state of purposeful triage. With the legal pad between us, we mapped the wreckage of my old life. It was grim, but with him beside me it felt manageable, like clearing out a cluttered, haunted attic. The condo, I said, tapping the page. It's the biggest thing. I love that light in the living room, but it's tainted. And he's probably there waiting. You don't have to go back, Leo said firmly. We can get a storage unit, hire movers. You can stay here as long as you need. The offer was so open, so generous, it stole my breath. Leo, I can't just. You can, he interrupted. It's a spare key and a couch. It's not a sacrifice. He hesitated, running a hand through his curls. It's what friends do. But we had stepped over the line of simple friendship, and we both knew it. The kiss hung in the air between every practical sentence, a living, breathing entity we were carefully avoiding. The memory of it was a low hum in my veins, a distraction I couldn't afford, not with the ground still shifting under my feet. We decided I would need some essentials from my place. A stealth mission. Leo drove us across town in his Volvo, a baseball cap pulled low over my brow. We parked a block away. My heart hammered against my ribs as we approached the sleek, modern building. The doorman, Carlos, gave me a sympathetic, knowing look as we entered. The news had clearly reached the staff. Miss Evans, he murmured. Mr. Sterling is upstairs. He's been in and out all day. A fresh wave of anxiety washed over me. Leo's hand found the small of my back, a steadying pressure. We'll be quick, he told Carlos, his voice leaving no room for argument. The elevator ride to the 12th floor was agony. The doors slid open onto my hallway, and there, leaning against the wall opposite my door, was Alex. He looked terrible. Not disheveled in a romantic, tragic way, but in a depleted, desperate way. His custom suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot and shadowed. He'd been waiting. For hours by the look of it. The confident, frozen statue from the ballroom was gone, replaced by a man clinging to the edge of a cliff. When he saw me, his body jerked upright. Then he saw Leo behind me, and his face contorted with a venomous mixture of relief and rage. Clara, he said, his voice ragged. Thank God. We need to talk. Alone. His eyes flicked to Leo with pure, undiluted hatred. He doesn't belong here. I felt Leo tense behind me, but he didn't speak. He was letting me steer. This was my battle. He belongs wherever I am, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm here to get some things. Please step away from my door. Your door. Alex let out a harsh, brittle laugh. Claire, be serious. This place, your life, it's all part of us. You can't just rewrite history because you threw a tantrum with your gardener. The slur against Leo was meant to wound me. Instead, it ignited a cold, clarifying fury. I took a step forward, closing the distance between us. I could smell the stale coffee and desperation on him. There is no us, Alex, I said, each word a chip of ice. You ended us when you put your tongue down another woman's throat in front of everyone we know. You ended it when you thought you could humiliate me into submission. I didn't rewrite history. I just wrote the next chapter without you in it. Now move. He didn't move. He stared at me, his eyes searching my face for the softness he'd always been able to exploit, for the Clara who would smooth things over to avoid a scene. He found only granite. It was a mistake, he burst out, the controlled facade cracking completely. A stupid, drunken mistake. He meant nothing. You're everything. The life we built, the plans, you're throwing it all away over one moment. You planned it, I stated, the coldness in my voice absolute. You looked at me before you did it. You wanted me to see. That wasn't a mistake, Alex. That was a message. And I received it. Loud and clear. His jaw worked. He was floundering, his scripts failing him. He'd prepared for tears, for pleading, for a negotiation. He hadn't prepared for this glacial, unstoppable finality. I love you, he said, the words sounding hollow, a last-ditch incantation. The words, which once would have melted me, now landed with a dull, pathetic thud. No, you don't, I replied almost sadly. You love the idea of me. The suitable accessory. Well, the accessory is now self-aware and she's resigning. I brushed past him, my shoulder connecting with his. He was so stunned he barely resisted. I unlocked the door, Leo a solid, silent shadow at my back. Clara, please. Alex's voice broke, a genuine sob tearing from his throat. It was the first real, unfiltered emotion I'd seen from him in years. It wasn't attractive, it was raw and ugly. He stumbled after us into the pristine, minimalist space that now felt like a museum of a dead relationship. I went straight to my bedroom, pulling a small suitcase from the closet. I began filling it with practical things. Jeans, sweaters, underwear, my passport, a few precious books. Leo stood in the doorway, a silent sentinel keeping Alex at bay in the living room. I could hear Alex pacing, muttering to himself, then pleading again. You can't do this. After everything I've given you. The connections, the opportunities. You'd be nothing without me. I froze, a folded sweater in my hands. The last veil was ripped away. I walked back into the living room, the suitcase in my hand. Leo's face was dark with fury, but he held his position. I looked at Alex, truly looked at him, seeing the small, scared man behind the expensive veneer. That's always what you thought, wasn't it? I said, my voice quiet. That I was a project. A talented orphan you could polish and present. Well, the project is complete. She's a fully realized person. And she's leaving. I turned to the one piece of art in the room that was truly wholly mine. A large abstract canvas I'd painted in art school, a riot of defiant color and movement. Alex had always hated it, said it clashed with the aesthetic. I took it off the wall. What are you doing? Alex asked, bewildered. Taking what's mine, I said. I handed the painting to Leo, who took it without a word, his eyes gleaming with fierce pride. That small action, the physical transfer of my past from this gilded cage into Leo's trustworthy hands, seemed to break the last of Alex's control. He didn't lunge or shout. He just crumpled. He sank onto my cold Scandinavian sofa, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent, wrenching sobs. It was the breakdown. Not the performative one from the hallway, but the real, ugly, final collapse of his worldview. He had lost. Not just me, but the narrative, the control, the perfect picture. He was just a man sobbing on a couch that cost more than his driver's annual salary. I felt no triumph. Only a vast, empty pity. And relief. Leo and I left. We didn't say another word. We carried my suitcase and my painting down in the elevator, past Carlos's solemn nod, and out into the gray afternoon. Back in the Volvo, the painting leaning against the back seat, I let out a long, trembling breath. The reckoning was over. I had faced him, faced the physical symbol of our life, and I had walked away with my soul and my art intact. Leo started the car. Where to, boss? He asked, his voice gentle. I looked at him, at the profile I knew better than my own, at the man who had just stood guard while I fought my way free. The hum between us was no longer just about the kiss. It was about everything that had happened since. It was about this new, raw, uncharted territory we were navigating together. Home, I said, and for the first time I didn't mean the condo. I meant the place with the crackling fire, the jungle of plants, and him. He didn't smile, but the tension in his shoulders eased. He just nodded, put the car in gear, and drove us away from the wreckage towards the messy, green, uncertain future. The silence in Leo's car was different now. The frantic energy of escape had dissipated, replaced by a heavy, post-storm calm. The weight of the confrontation with Alex, the sight of his ultimate breakdown, sat between us like a third passenger. But so did my painting, its vibrant colors a defiant slash in the rearview mirror. We didn't go straight back to his apartment. Leo drove aimlessly for a while through neighborhoods where the trees were beginning to turn, their leaves bleeding ochre and crimson into the gray day. He was giving me space to process, to breathe air that wasn't thick with the aftermath of battle. He really believed it, I said finally, my voice quiet against the hum of the engine. that I owed him my existence. Narcissists often do, Leo replied, his tone neutral, careful. Their narrative is the only one that's real. You changing the script wasn't just a rejection, it was an existential threat. I looked at him. When did you get so wise about narcissists? A faint, wry smile touched his lips. I dated a performance artist for 6 months in my 20s. She once cried because a pigeon didn't appreciate her interpretive dance in the park. It was a learning experience. A real laugh bubbled out of me, startling us both. Felt foreign and wonderful, like stretching a muscle long and used. Leo's smile widened and the atmosphere in the car shifted, lightning. We ended up at the city's sprawling botanical garden. It was a weekday, drizzling and cold, so we had the vast glass-domed conservatory mostly to ourselves. Leo paid for our tickets, waving away my attempt to reach for my wallet. My treat. You've had a rough week. Stepping into the humid, earthy-scented air was like entering another world. A world ruled by green. We walked in silence along winding paths, beneath towering palms and through clouds of delicate ferns. The chaos was ordered here, wild yet purposeful. It was Leo's element, and I felt him relax beside me in a way he never did in concrete spaces. We stopped before a massive wall of living moss, a tapestry of emerald, forest, and sage. It was cool and silent, absorbing sound and worry. "This is your green," I said softly, not looking at him. "One of them," he said. He was standing close, our shoulders almost touching. "Green is life forcing its way through cracks. It's resilience. It's peace. It's you," I whispered. He didn't deny it. He turned to face me, his hazel eyes serious in the diffused green light. "Clara, about the other night." My heart stuttered. "We don't have to." "I want to," he said, his voice firm. "It can't just be a weapon we used and then put back in the drawer." It meant something. To me. The air grew thick, charged with a different kind of tension than the fear and anger of the past days. This was slow, sweet, and terrifying. It meant something to me too, I admitted, the words feeling both dangerous and true. "But Leo, I'm a disaster zone. My life is in boxes. My heart it's bruised and suspicious. You deserve more than a rebound wrapped in chaos." He reached out then, not to pull me to him but to take my hand. He linked our fingers, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. His touch was the same as it had always been, comforting, familiar, but now it carried a new electric potential. "First of all," he said, his gaze locked on ours hands, "you've never been a disaster. You're a reorganization. A renovation. Secondly, I've been in love with you since you explained color theory to me with such passion that you got ultramarine blue all over your nose." The world stopped. The gentle drip of water, the rustle of leaves, my own breath, everything ceased. I stared at him. "What?" He looked up, meeting my eyes, vulnerability and defiance warring in his. "I've loved you for years, Clara. Quietly. Hopelessly. Watching you walk toward a life that made you smaller, with a man who didn't see the brilliant, messy, passionate woman I saw. It was the great, quiet tragedy of my life. So when you kissed me, it wasn't you using me. It was an answered prayer I never dared to speak. And if all I get is to be your harbor while you rebuild, then that's more than I ever hoped for. But don't for a second think you're not enough or that you're some burden. You're the prize." Tears blurred the wall of green into a shimmering watercolor. No one had ever spoken to me like that. Alex's compliments had been about my taste, my poise, my suitability. Leo's words were about my core. "Leo," my voice broke. He lifted our joined hands and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to my knuckles. "I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you the truth. My truth. So you know where I stand. There's no pressure. No timeline. There's just me here in your corner. However you need me." It was the most selfless declaration I'd ever heard. It offered everything and demanded nothing. It was the exact opposite of Alex's transactional, conditional world. This was the green life forcing its way through the cracks he had made in me. I didn't have words. My emotions were a kaleidoscope: grief, wonder, fear, a dawning, radiant hope. So I showed him. I stepped into him, releasing his hand to cradle his face, just as I had in the ballroom. But this time there was no audience. No revenge. No cold calculation. There was only the mossy green light, the smell of earth and rain, and the beating of my heart loud and true in my ears. I kissed him. Slowly, tenderly, a question and an answer all at once. He made a soft, shattered sound against my lips and then he was kissing me back, his arms coming around me, pulling me close against the solid warmth of his chest. This kiss was nothing like the first. That had been a declaration of war. This was a surrender to peace. It was deep and searching and achingly sweet, full of years of suppressed longing and the terrifying, beautiful possibility of a new beginning. When we finally parted, we were both breathing raggedly, foreheads pressed together. That, I managed to say, was not a stunt. A grin, bright and real, spread across his face. Noted. I don't know what I'm doing, I confessed. Good, he murmured, brushing a stray tear from my cheek with his thumb. Let's not know together. We walked back through the gardens, hand in hand, the world outside the glass still gray and uncertain. But inside something had taken root. It was fragile, a green shoot pushing through frost-hardened ground. But it was alive. And it was ours. The siege was over. The reckoning was past. Now, in the quiet green space between what was lost and what was to come, a second love was beginning to grow. The green shoot of us needed time. We gave it that. The week that followed was a strange, liminal space. A bubble woven from the quiet rhythm of Leo's apartment, the shared intimacy of our new truth, and the ongoing chaos of my unraveled life. I officially retained a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Diane who took one look at my situation and said, "We'll have him for breakfast." She handled the cancellation of all wedding contracts, sending formal notices that pinned the breach of faith squarely on Alex's publicly witnessed infidelity. She also sent a cease and desist letter regarding any further attempts at direct contact. The legal firewall was a profound relief. My job was trickier. I called my boss, Margot, and requested a leave of absence. She'd seen the gossip, heard the whispers. "Take a month, Clara," she'd said, her voice laced with uncharacteristic gentleness. "The art world is a small, vicious town. Let the dust settle. Your position is safe." It was a lifeline, but it also meant my professional identity was on ice. Through it all, Leo was my constant. He was my sounding board, my teamaker, my defender, and now, tentatively, my lover. We were careful with each other, navigating this new landscape with a tenderness that made my heart ache. We kissed often, slow, deep kisses that tasted of promise and healing. We slept curled together on his couch, my head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. But we didn't talk about the future. We existed in a fragile present, building something real brick by brick, kiss by kiss, while the ghost of my past life rattled its chains outside our door. The cease and desist letter worked for a few days. The texts and calls stopped. The white boxes of roses ceased appearing. I began to hope that Alex's breakdown at my condo had been the final, pathetic act. I was wrong. It was a Thursday night, raining again in a cold, relentless pour. Leo was at his drafting table, sketching ideas for a new commission. I was curled in the armchair, reading a novel, trying to lose myself in someone else's story. A fire crackled in the grate and Miles Davis played on the record player. It was a scene of such profound, contented peace it felt almost blasphemous. Then the pounding started. Not a knock. A furious, relentless pounding on the apartment door, so hard it shook in its frame. We both froze. Leo's charcoal snapped in his hand. My book slipped from my fingers. "Clara, I know you're in there. Open the door." Alex's voice was a raw, alcohol-slurred scream, torn apart by rage and despair. It was nothing like the controlled, manipulative tone from before. This was pure, unfiltered ID. My blood turned to ice. Leo was on his feet in an instant, his body coiled. "Call the police," he said, his voice low and deadly calm. "Clara, please. You have to talk to me. You can't do this to me." The pounding became a kicking. Thump, thump, thump. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking violently. Leo moved to the door, not opening it but standing directly behind it, a solid barrier. "Go away, Alex," Leo shouted, his voice cutting through the wood. "You're not welcome here. Leave now or the police will remove you. This is between me and her, you sick fuck. You stole her. You poisoned her against me." The venom, the violence in his words were terrifying. This wasn't the man I'd known. This was a stranger possessed by a terrifying grief rage. "I'm calling," I yelled, my voice trembling as I dialed 911. I gave the address, my voice gaining strength as I stated, There's a man trying to break down my door. He's intoxicated and violent. He's my ex-fiancé. Please hurry. You calling the cops on me? Alex shrieked, his voice cracking. After everything I did for you? I gave you a life. I loved you. The pounding turned into a full-body slam against the door. The wood groaned. Leo braced himself against it, his face a mask of grim determination. He's going to break it, I whispered into the phone, panic clawing up my throat. Units are en route, ma'am. Stay on the line, the dispatcher said calmly. Clara, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just open the door. Let me see you. Let me explain. The pleading was interspersed with more slams. He was crying now, great ragged sobs that mingled with the rain and his own fury. I can't sleep. I can't eat. You broke me. In that loser. Each slam felt like a blow to my own chest. This was the full, catastrophic collapse. The public humiliation, the legal rebuke, the finality of my absence. It had all fermented in him into this toxic, explosive storm. Alex, stop. I cried out, unable to bear it. Just go home. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over, he roared. Then the slamming stopped. A moment of heavy, panting silence. Then a low, broken weeping. Please, Claire, please. I'll do anything. I'll get rid of her. I'll buy you a gallery. Anything. Just don't leave me with this. This nothing. I'm nothing without you. His words, so pathetic and revealing, were somehow more chilling than the violence. This was the core of him. A profound emptiness he'd tried to fill with money, status, and me. And now the prized possession had walked away and the void was swallowing him whole. Sirens cut through the night, growing closer. The sound seemed to sober him for a second. They're coming, Alex, Leo said, his voice cold and clear through the door. You need to leave. Now. We heard a shuffling, a muttered curse. Then his voice close to the door, low and filled with a terrifying finality. This isn't over, Clara. You belong to me. You'll always belong to me. Footsteps stumbling down the hallway. The distant whine of the elevator. I slumped against the wall, the phone dropping from my hand. The dispatcher's tinny voice asked if he was gone. Leo was already at the window watching the street below. Cops are here, he said. They've got him. He's on the curb arguing with them. The adrenaline drained from me, leaving me boneless and shaking. Leo was at my side in an instant, pulling me into his arms. I buried my face in his shirt, inhaling the familiar sense of cotton and graphite in him, the antidote to the poison that had just been on the other side of the door. It's okay, he murmured into my hair, his own heart hammering against mine. He's gone. You're safe. But I wasn't okay. The last illusion was shattered. The polished, powerful Alex Sterling was gone, revealing a desperate, dangerous, broken man beneath. The legal barriers meant nothing to this kind of obsession. The cold fury I'd felt was now layered with a new, sharp fear. The police came up, took our statements. They confirmed Alex was highly intoxicated and would be taken home, but since no property was actually damaged and he'd left before they arrived, charges were unlikely. They suggested a restraining order. It felt like a flimsy piece of paper against the storm we'd just witnessed. After they left, the apartment felt different. The peace was violated. The bubble was punctured. Leo checked the door, reinforcing the deadbolt with a determined set to his jaw. I stood in the center of the room, hugging myself. The novel lay splayed on the floor. The fire had died to embers. The record had ended, leaving a hollow, static hiss. He meant it, I said quietly. He thinks he owns me. Leo came to me, his hands firm on my shoulders. He doesn't. You're yours. Only yours. And he took a deep breath. I am yours too if you'll have me. Not to own. To stand with. To fight with. I'm not going anywhere, Clara. Not because you need a bodyguard, but because I love you. And that storm outside. He gestured to the door. It can rage all it wants. Doesn't get to have you. You're here. With me. In the green. He kissed me then, not with the tender exploration of the greenhouse, but with a fierce, possessive certainty that was the perfect counter to Alex's toxic claim. It was a kiss that said, I choose you. I stand with you. This is real. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach. But wrapped in Leo's arms, in the undeniable truth of what we were building, it didn't feel like the end. It felt like the necessary final purge before a true beginning. The storm had come to the door. And we had weathered it. Together. In the bruised quiet of the morning after the storm, we made decisions. The restraining order was the first. Diane, my lawyer, handled it with terrifying efficiency. A judge presented with the police report, my statement, and a curated selection of Alex's more unhinged texts, granted a temporary order. It was a piece of paper, yes, but it was a line drawn in the sand with the full force of the law behind it. A boundary. The second decision was about the condo. I couldn't go back, not even with movers. The space was too saturated with him, with the memory of his breakdown, with the echo of his pounding on a different door. Leo, practical as ever, found a solution. We sublet it, he said. Furnished. A corporate lease. It'll cover the mortgage and then some. You never have to set foot in it again. He said it so naturally. It wasn't Leo fixing my problems. It was us solving our challenges. The distinction was everything. The process was a whirlwind. With Diane's help, we found a tech startup looking for executive housing. Within a week, my beautiful empty shell of a condo was someone else's problem. The profits were directed into a new account, one with only my name on it. Financial independence felt like its own kind of armor. The final, largest decision bloomed slowly, over shared silences and murmured conversations in the dark. I don't want to go back to the gallery, I confessed one night, my head on Leo's chest as we lay on his couch. Not the way it was. I was just curating wealth. Polishing trophies for people like Alex. What do you want? He asked, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm. I looked around his living room at my painting now hanging proudly above the fireplace, a riot of color amidst the green plants. I thought of the raw catharsis of the charcoal, the peace of the botanical gardens. I want to make art again. Not just to praise it. And I want to help others make it. Real art, messy art, not just investment-grade decor. Leo was silent for a moment. Then he said, the old hardware store on Oak Street. The one with the big north-facing windows. It's for lease. I propped myself up on an elbow looking at him. What are you saying? A slow, brilliant smile spread across his face. I'm saying I have some savings. You have some condo money. I'm saying we could build something. A studio. A communal workshop space. Maybe a small gallery in front for local unknown artists. A place that's about the work, not the pedigree. The idea took root in my mind not as a fantasy but as a blueprint. It was audacious. It was terrifying. It was absolutely perfect. It wasn't running away from my old life. It was building a new one from the ground up on my own terms. On our terms. We. I asked, my heart in my throat. Partners, he said, his eyes serious. In every way. It was a proposal far more meaningful than the one I'd received from Alex, with his diamond solitaire and 5-year financial projections. This was an offering of a shared dream, a messy, beautiful, collaborative life. Yes, I said, and I kissed him, sealing the pact. The grand opening of Verdant Studios was held on a bright, crisp autumn afternoon, 3 months after the night at the Wellington. There was no society crowd, no champagne towers. There were folding chairs, a local indie band, and a keg of craft beer. The air smelled of sawdust, fresh paint, and the rich, dark earth of the potted trees Leo had brought in. The space was a revelation. The north light poured in, illuminating the raw brick walls and polished concrete floors. In the back, easels and work tables stood ready for the first round of artists who'd signed up for studio space and workshops. In the front, the gallery wall held its inaugural show, Emergence. It featured my new series, large textured canvases exploring growth through fracture, using charcoals, heavy acrylics, and even fragments of my shattered wedding china, all in a palette of stormy grays breaking into vibrant, defiant greens. And beside my work, Leo's new series hung, breathtakingly detailed botanical illustrations that felt alive, each leaf and petal a celebration of resilient, persistent life. Our works spoke to each other across the room, a dialogue of healing and hope. My parents were there, beaming. Margot, my old boss, came and after a long look at my paintings, quietly offered me a guest curator spot on my own terms. Friends from my old life who had chosen to reach out were mingling with Leo's wonderfully eclectic crowd of artists, musicians, and horticulturalists. I stood near the door holding a plastic cup of beer, watching the room hum with genuine, unpretentious joy. I was wearing paint-stained jeans and a simple black sweater, my hair in a loose braid. I felt more like myself than I had in years. Then I saw him. He was across the street, standing in the shadow of a building. Alex. He looked thinner, older. The restraining order kept him at a distance, but he was there watching. His face was pale, his expression one of stunned, bleak incomprehension. He was looking at the crowd, at the vibrant space, at me, vibrant, alive, and utterly beyond his reach. He saw Leo come up beside me, slip an arm around my waist and press a kiss to my temple. He saw me lean into the touch, a smile of pure, unguarded happiness lighting my face. For a moment our eyes met across the busy street. There was no cold smile from me now, only a calm, indifferent recognition before I turned away, back to my life, my love, my verdant, thriving world. He had thought his public kiss would break me. He thought my retaliation was a temporary madness. He thought his storm at the door would reclaim me. He was wrong on every count. His kiss had shattered the gilded cage. My kiss had been the first act of freedom. His breakdown had been the death rattle of his control. And this noisy, messy, green-filled room, Leo's hand in mine, the smell of my own art in the air, this was the life built from the ruins. Later, as the party wound down and we were left alone in the space, sweeping up and laughing over a spilled bag of chips, Leo pulled me into the center of the empty gallery. "Dance with me," he said soft. There was no band now, only the distant city sounds. He hummed a tune against my hair and we swayed together, amidst the paintings and the potted plants. "He was here," I murmured into his shoulder. "Watching." "I know," Leo said, his arms tightening around me. "Let him watch. Let him see what real happiness looks like. It has nothing to do with him." And he was right. The shadow Alex cast was long, but it no longer chilled me. I was standing in the light we had made for ourselves. He kissed me then in front of the large window where anyone could see. It wasn't for show. It wasn't a weapon. It was simply a fact as true and necessary as the green growth after a fire. It was a promise, a welcome, and a beginning. The end.